your name format. Maybe could you please change your name format into the format country abbreviation / your name for easier recognition. Hi, Agatha.
Hello, Handy and everyone.
Good afternoon. Please, everyone, if you haven't changed your name format, please do so.
Okay.
So we can better. Yeah, thank you, Beverly, for changing the name format. So we can easily recognize everyone here. Thank you.
Konita, closed caption belum aktif nih. Konit.
Siap Mbak, udah aku invite Mas Upi.
Oke, jangan lupa di save untuk closed captionnya ya.
Siap.
So, how are you guys feeling? Ari or Beverly, are you guys ready for reading out the recommendations?
Yes, we have practiced this morning.
Okay, cool. So no challenges or no barriers to, for yourself, or maybe Beverly?
None so far, aside from the nerves.
Okay, so great that you guys are not feeling nervous. So I hope that everything can run smoothly. Okay, so I guess we're still waiting for other speakers to join. And let me mute myself until other speakers have joined us.
Handi, I think Madam Jocelyn, the SOMSO chair, already joined.
Oh, okay. Hello, good afternoon, Madam Jocelyn. Very good afternoon. Can you hear my voice? Okay, I think we can wait for Madam Jocelyn to respond while still waiting for other speakers to join us.
Nanti sign interpreters yang pertama Laura ya.
Hello, Shafiq. How are you doing, Shafiq? I cannot hear your voice. You're still not audible.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear?
Yeah, it's great right now.
I suddenly turn off this microphone. So now I turn on the mic. Is it okay, the brightness, or I need to reduce the brightness?
The brightness, I think it's great to me.
For me, it's too bright, so I need to reduce a little bit.
Or maybe if you want to try to reduce your brightness, you can try right now.
So is that okay?
Any position convenient for you?
Yes.
This is okay.
Okay, thanks.
And your voice is also great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Henry.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. I mute first.
Sorry?
I mute first.
Oh yeah, okay. It's all right. Good afternoon, Miss Jocelyn. Can you hear my voice? Hi, Laura, the sign interpreter. Thank you so much for the support. Looking forward to work with you. And please do let me know if I speak too fast so I can slow down during the session. Just type in the chat box, maybe from from the sign language interpreter team. If I speak too fast, please just remind me privately on the chat box so I can see it. Thanks a lot.
Miss Tandy, do I need to change a little bit position? See, is it blocked?
No, I think it's great already, but your shoulders is kind of like have a shadow
Yes.
on the screen because of the background.
Yeah, because the background. No problem lah. No problem.
Yeah, I think it's still fine, Shafiq.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Hello, dear participants. Thank you for joining us in today's session. We will begin at 1 o'clock. And please change your name format into the format that is sent in the chat box by the committee, your country abbreviation / your name, so we can identify yourself and where you're from. All right, cool. Thank you. I saw everyone already changed the name format. And I will keep reminding everyone to later to change your name format if you haven't got the time to do so. Hello, Ms. Jocelyn. Are you connected with us already? And can you hear my voice? In 5 minutes, we will begin with the video from agenda. So if you want to try to check your connection, your audio and your video, please, you still have time to do so. So if you wish to check out before we start at 1 p.m. Thank you. Hi Lynn from Vietnam. Do you want to try checking out your video as well as your microphone before we begin?
Hi everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Your voice is a bit too low. Maybe you can speak louder, please.
Hello? Hello? Is it
Maybe
okay?
a bit louder, maybe.
Sorry, I think the problem is. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so now it's better?
Yes, it's better. Can you also use the virtual background, or is it not possible for you to do so?
Yeah, I tried, but I think my laptop is not work. Like the virtual background is not work on my
Okay.
computer. So I'm sorry for that.
Okay, thank you so much. But the thing is, you're audible right now, so we can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know in ASEAN, over 17 million people struggle with accessing the public facilities every single day? People with issues of sight, mobility, hearing, and intellect still face many barriers in their everyday lives. For persons with disabilities, society still has little solutions for them. Well, that's about to change. The ASEAN Enabling Master Plan 2025 is committed to mainstream the rights of persons with disabilities, ensuring that each individual enjoy their equal rights like the rest of us. With accessible facilities and increased communications, persons with disabilities have more ways to travel out of their homes to discover and connect with their communities. With better systems and new technology, persons with disabilities are empowered to pursue an education, which gives them better prospects in the workforce. And with a stable income, they can take over the steering wheel and have the freedom to make the decisions that matter. So let's change our attitudes and work hand in hand as a people with one vision, one identity, one community to build a better ASEAN. Are you ready to make this change?
that we present in this collaboration projects. Thank you.
Do you know in ASEAN, over 17 million people struggle with accessing the public facilities every single day? People with issues of sight, mobility, hearing, and intellect still face many barriers in their everyday lives. For persons with disabilities, society still has little solutions for them. Well, that's about to change. The ASEAN Enabling Master Plan 2025 is committed to mainstream the rights of persons with disabilities, ensuring that each individual enjoy their equal rights like the rest of us. With accessible facilities and increased communications, persons with disabilities have more ways to travel out of their homes to discover and connect with their communities. With better systems and new technology, persons with disabilities are empowered to pursue an education, which gives them better prospects in the workforce. And with a stable income, they can take over the steering wheel and have the freedom to make the decisions that matter. So let's change our attitudes and work hand in hand as a people with one vision, one identity, one community to build a better ASEAN. Are you ready to make this change?
Good afternoon, Ms. Felicia from ASEAN Secretariat, and also other fellow participants who have joined us today. Thank you very much for your time in attending this public dialogue, and I hope that you find this public dialogue useful and also beneficial for you. Thank you very much. And we will begin shortly in 5 minutes. Thank you. Also, a very good afternoon and a very good evening to His Excellency Will Nankervis, the Australian Ambassador to ASEAN. Thank you for joining and attending this public dialogue. I hope that you can hear my voice.
Hi, thank you. It's a pleasure. Good to be with you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for attending us this event.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Hello, good afternoon from the Philippines. Can we request for a quick audio check? Can you hear us loud and clear? Hello.
Actually, the sound is a bit cracking. It's not that clear.
How about now? Am I loud and clear?
It's better, but maybe could you try to arrange it once again? It's still echo, actually.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, that's better. We can hear you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Also, I'd like to remind everyone to change your name format. If you haven't got the time to do so, please change your name format into country abbreviation / your name, like mine, ID / handy. So it will help us a lot in identifying where you're from. So really appreciate if you want to change your name format yourself. And we will begin in 4 minutes.
Recording in progress.
Hi, Maria. Welcome back again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Us. Hello, Miss Jillian Ray. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting us. Very excited about the event.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to start.
Hi, Handy. I forgot to check my audio. Am I audible?
Yes, it's really clear. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Handy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, the representative from SOM SWD. Thank you so much for attending this event and look forward to have you all. We will begin in 1 minute. We still have time if you want to check your audio or maybe video to try before we begin. Thank you. Okay, so since this is already 1 o'clock, thank you very much, everyone, for attending this session. And a very good afternoon to our honorable guests of honor and speakers, His Excellency Wilnan Kervis, Australian Ambassador to ASEAN, Mr. Somkiao Kingsada, Chair of ASEAN Senior Officials Meeting on Youth and Director General of International Relations Cooperation Department of Lao Youth Union, Ms. Jocelyn P. Niwane, Senior Officials Meeting on Social Welfare and Development, Mr. Muhammad Arif Hidayat, Senior Officials Meeting on Labor, Ms. Maria Perdomo, Regional Coordinator and Regional Digital Hub Manager for Asia at the United Nations Capital Development Fund, Ms. Ramya Praina, Co-CEO, Impact Agency for Brand and Social of ThinkWeb. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow youth participants, welcome to the public dialogue, Advancing Inclusive Employment and Entrepreneurship Opportunities for Youth using the Digital Technology in the COVID-19 Pandemic Era. First of all, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Handi Santoso, and I'm from the ASEAN Youth Organization, and I will be the MC for this public dialogue today, and it's very nice to see you all virtually. Before we begin, please allow me to explain a brief background about this event. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought unlimited opportunities for development and the use of digital technology in entrepreneurship and employment sectors. Changes of behavior of our society into online world and virtual interactions like work from home, learn from home, shop from home, for instance, are inevitable. Therefore, youths known as digital natives with their agility are expected to adapt to the fast-changing digital world. However, there is one question remains. How about youth with disabilities? Therefore, in commemorating the International Youth Day 2021, the General Election Network for Disability Access, or AGENDA, in collaboration with ASEAN Disability Forum, ASEAN Youth Organization, as well as ASEAN Youth Forum with the support from Australian government, has initiated a series of events of focus group discussion, as well as this public dialogue, with two specific objectives. First, we aim to gather youth with and without disabilities in ASEAN to exchange insights, as well as to formulate joint recommendations on how to foster inclusivity of youth with disabilities in ASEAN economic recovery efforts, particularly related to their equal rights to employment and entrepreneurship opportunities using the digital technologies. Second, we aim to provide an opportunity for youth representing those with and without disabilities to engage and network with ASEAN officials by presenting their joint recommendations, which have been produced during the focus group discussion that we had conducted on August 22nd, 2021, last month, on how key stakeholders, including ASEAN governments and private companies, can ensure the equal rights of people with disabilities to employment and entrepreneurship are protected and enhanced through the usage of the digital technologies. Next, I would like to explain to all of you some of the rules that you have to bear in mind when following this public dialogue today. First, all participants are encouraged to turn on your video and mute your microphone if you're not speaking. Second, we kindly appreciate your kind cooperation to change your name format into the following, as has been sent in the chat box: your country abbreviation / your nickname. For example, mine is ID/Handy. Third, all participants are encouraged to actively participate and involve in this public dialogue, especially during the Q&A sessions of the panel discussions. Last but not least, everyone has the equal rights to voice up your thoughts and opinions, but please respect each other and be mindful of what you're sharing. Moving on to the next agenda, let's hear a welcoming remark from His Excellency Wilnan Kervis, Australian Ambassador to ASEAN. And without further ado, I would like to invite His Excellency Wilnan Kervis onto the screen. And Your Excellency, the screen is entirely yours. You may have the time.
Well, thanks very much, Handy. Good morning, everyone, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Special thanks to the Chair of ASEAN Senior Officials Meeting on Youth, Director General Mr. Somkiao Kingsada, for taking the time out of your really busy schedule, I'm sure, to open the dialogue. And a special welcome to all the youth groups joining via this platform or viewing it on social media. On behalf of the Australian Government, it really is a pleasure to welcome you to today's dialogue, Advancing Inclusive Employment and Entrepreneurship Opportunities for Youth Using Digital Technology in the COVID-19 Pandemic Era. I'd like to thank our disability partners, IFES, Agenda and ADF, for arranging today's event, and take this opportunity to recognise the important contributions of the ASEAN Youth Organizations and ASEAN Youth Forum. We really appreciate your engagement in this dialogue and the opportunity to explore youth employment and entrepreneurship during these challenging times. Last month, we celebrated International Youth Day, an opportunity to highlight young people's voices, actions, and initiatives in response to collective global challenges. It's also a chance to bring youth issues to the attention of the international community and acknowledge the value of youth as key partners in today's global society. Today's public dialogue is another opportunity to engage with our youth partners, and especially young people with disabilities, to discuss the benefits and challenges of employment, entrepreneurship, and digital technology. The pandemic continues to have a devastating impact on learning and workplace opportunities for young people. Young people with disabilities face additional cultural, socioeconomic, and political barriers when trying to access services. This is also in the difficult context of rising youth unemployment in ASEAN. Today's dialogue aims to explore the issues from different perspectives and provoke us to consider what else can be done, particularly for the most vulnerable. For example, ensuring young people with disabilities are heard and incorporated in ASEAN's recovery plans to rebuild from the pandemic. Australia is committed to working with ASEAN to promote and protect disability rights in the region and in the response to COVID-19 and its recovery. Protecting human rights for all is an essential part of our foreign policy, and our support for this has significantly increased in the context of the pandemic. This is articulated in our COVID-19 development strategy, Partnerships for Recovery, and specifically in ASEAN, we've committed an additional $1.3 million to our Disability Rights in ASEAN program in 2020-21. Our work in the region places a really strong emphasis on mitigating the pandemic's impact for the most vulnerable. Our programs support ASEAN's efforts to mainstream gender equality, disability inclusion, and support human rights. Our projects align with ASEAN's Comprehensive Recovery Framework and Implementation Plan, the region's pathway out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Wherever possible, we encourage partners to adopt rights-based approaches, promote gender equality, disability, and social inclusion. We're especially proud of our disability partners' ongoing work with ASEAN to implement the ASEAN Enabling Master Plan. Our Disability Rights in ASEAN project supports organisations representing people with disabilities to promote their rights. And I'm pleased that today's dialogue extends this work with youth partners to inform policy and planning in COVID-19 responses. The efforts of ASEAN and member states to uphold the rights of persons with disabilities is commendable. These obligations are outlined in the ASEAN Enabling Master Plan, are reinforced by action points to help guide implementation, and are being used by ASEAN stakeholders to maximise COVID-19 response and recovery. We continue to encourage the active involvement of persons with disabilities, including youth, in the Master Plan's implementation. We recognise the combined efforts of ASEAN's human rights and social welfare bodies in this effort, and continue to support our project partners to ensure no one is left behind in COVID-19. I'm aware that many of our disability and youth partners have already contributed to fruitful discussions in the lead up to today. I look forward to hearing more about these focus group discussions, as well as learning from today's expert speakers and panelists to inform recommendations that support young people and youth with disabilities in ASEAN's recovery efforts. Thank you, and I really wish you all the best for a very constructive dialogue. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for the wonderful, encouraging, welcoming remark for our participants today. So the next session, we will have a group photo session. I would like to invite everyone and all of you to turn on your camera so we can see your face on the screen. And I will be leading the photo session and helped by the organizing committee to take the screenshot for all of us. So we have 5 screens right now. So please give us your best smile. And I will lead this session, and be ready on count 1 to 3. And this is for the first page in my screen. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next one. We have the second slides. We have the second page. 1, 2, 3. Keep smiling, please. We still have the third one. Okay, 1, 2, 3. The fourth. 1, 2, 3. And this is the last one. Give us your best smile and open your camera. 1, 2, 3. All right, awesome. Thank you so much. I have seen so many bright and enthusiastic faces on the screen. And thanks everyone for participating. And shall we move on to the next agenda item? So on the next agenda item, we will hear the youth recommendations to ASEAN by youth representatives on advancing inclusive employment and entrepreneurship opportunities for youth using the digital technology in the COVID-19 pandemic era. This joint recommendation was produced during our focus group discussion last month, and the joint recommendation has obtained 135 signatories from youth across ASEAN, Australia, and also Timor-Leste. And for this agenda item, we already have 4 youths to present the joint recommendations. And without further ado, let me invite and introduce our readers today. The first one, we have Mr. Ari Fajar from Indonesia. Hello, Ari. And the second one, we have Miss Beverly J. Bravo from the Philippines. Hello, Beverly.
Hello.
And the third, we have Mr. Muhammad Shafiq from Malaysia. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And the last one, we have Miss Dang Thuy Lin from Vietnam. Hello, good afternoon. And welcome to all of you. And the screen is entirely yours. Over to you.
Thank you, Handi. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ari Fajar. I'm from Indonesia, and today I'll be reading out the recommendations on advancing inclusive employment and entrepreneurship opportunities for youth using the digital technology in the COVID-19 pandemic era. This is a set of Southeast Asia youth recommendations for key stakeholders in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations to foster inclusivity for youth with disabilities in ASEAN economic recovery efforts, particularly related to their equal rights to employment and entrepreneurship opportunities using digital technology. The recommendations were created by youth representatives from ASEAN member states during the focus group discussion on August 22nd, 2021, consisting of 36 youth with and without disabilities. The specific action points of the ASEAN Enabling Master Plan 2025, mainstreaming the rights of persons with disabilities, have been identified under its recommendation to express our commitment to support and contribute to ASEAN's ongoing efforts to make this region more inclusive, especially for youth with disabilities. For the first recommendations in the employment sector for the policies and regulations, our first recommendations, ASEAN member states should create inclusive policies and regulation to increase employability of youth with and without disabilities and create a better work environment, which includes laws relating to self-employment or gig workers, the right to a living wage, enabling working environment, including the possibility for remote working, appropriate working hours, and the right to exercise their labor rights and to unionize, as mentioned on AEC 11 and ASCC 8. I'm sorry for my speed. Moving on, for the second recommendation, ASEAN member state should create and implement the policies on the recruitment and hiring practices to ensure the recruitment strategies and hiring policies do not discriminate against youth with disabilities and provide for reasonable accommodations to meet during interviews, onboarding, and etc. Our third recommendations, senior officials meeting on labor, SRO1, and senior officials meeting on social welfare and development, SAOMSWD, should encourage employers from both government and private sectors to strengthen the implementation of inclusive employment for persons with disabilities by creating guidance on how to develop and implement disability inclusive organizational policies, as mentioned on AEC 11, AEC 24, and AEC 25. The fourth recommendations, ASEAN member states should encourage to create policies and regulation that enable and support youth with disabilities to take jobs and enhance work performance by integrating ICT and the utilization of assistive technologies, as mentioned on AEC 13 and AEC 18. The fifth recommendation, ASEAN member states should create policies on tax reduction for companies who hire persons with disabilities or some sort of incentive scheme for employers. ASEAN should conduct a study on the impacts of incentives such as tax reduction on disability inclusive hiring. Then keep the part about what ASEAN member state can do about it, as mentioned on AEC 24 and AEC 25. The next part of the recommendation would be read out by my partner, Beverly.
Thank you, Ari. So to continue, the sixth recommendation, AMS should introduce policies that encourage the development and implementation of fully funded bridging courses for youth with disabilities to acquire requisite technical knowledge and skills to be hired or to continue their studies in the areas of artificial intelligence or AI, software engineering, network system, Internet of Things or IoT, big data analytics, and other ICT and green industries related fields, as mentioned in AEC 13, AEC 18, AEC 22, and ASCC 25. Seventh, AMS should promote the establishment of disability support service offices in all state and private universities to provide critical resources for students with disabilities, enabling an accessible learning environment, adaptable learning curriculum, career development, and the use of the accessible digital technology, as mentioned in AEC 13, ASCC 5, ASCC 11, ASCC 12, ASCC 15, and ASCC 12.2. Okay, next. Eighth, ASEAN should encourage policies on providing discounts for online skill courses, subsidiary internet prices, and access to high-speed internet in certain locations to expand access of young people with disabilities. Ninth, AMS should create hotlines or complaint mechanisms for persons with disabilities who encounter employment discrimination, resources on employment regulations or policies regarding youth with and without disabilities should be available for awareness and education purposes, as mentioned in ASCC 13 and ASCC 26. Moving on to digital platforms and skill enhancements. First, ASEAN, its related institutions, AICHR, SOMED, SOMY, SOMSWD, and ACWC, and AMS are encouraged to promote modules, courses, and training about disability rights for government, school, and private sectors, including but not limited to modules about different types of disabilities, such as autism, cultural competency training, ASEAN Enabling Master Plan 2025, and relevant laws of the rights of employees with disabilities, as mentioned in APSC 4, ASCC 25, and ASCC 26. Second, ASEAN, its related institutions, TELSOM, SLOM, SOMSWD, SOMY, and AMS, are encouraged to promote accessibility and digital applications and accessible features that will increase the employability of persons with disabilities, including but not limited to sign language interpreters, closed captions, video relay services or VRS, and note takers at offline and online meetings. AMS are encouraged to transfer materials to a readable format that is accessible to people with intellectual or cognitive disabilities, as mentioned in APSC 2, AEC 3, AEC 13, and ASCC 5. Third, AMS should support employers to build institutional knowledge on inclusive employment through disability sensitivity trainings and policy advocacy, as mentioned in AEC 24 and AEC 25. And under raising awareness, ASEAN, AMS, civil society organizations or CSOs, disabled people's organizations or DPOs, and other related institutions, AICHR, SOMED, SOMY, SOMSWD, ACWC, SLOM, should raise awareness about the meaning of accessibility among youth with and without disabilities through programs or events that can enable youth to share their experiences and provide opportunities to address gaps and misunderstandings between persons with and without disabilities. This is mentioned under APSC 23 and ASCC 3. Second, government, CSOs, organization of persons with disabilities, and other stakeholders should advocate for disability rights based on the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or UNCRPD, as mentioned in APSC 1, 7.6, 17, 19, 21, AEC 1, ASCC 1, 2, 6, 7, ASCC 8, 11, 13, ASCC 14, 19, and 26. So let me pass the microphone to Shafig. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Beverly. Now I continue. The part is number 3 is ASEAN and its related institution, AICHR, SOMY, SOMSWD, SCWC, and SLOM should encourage awareness raising among the private sector about the capability of persons with disabilities, their achievement, and the benefit of creating inclusive environment at work for you with and without disability, as mentioned in AEC 1 and APSC 26. Number 4, ASEAN and its related institution, AICHR, SLOM, and SOMY, AMS, as well as the regional and local disabled people organization should nurture, promote, and advance the power of collective bargaining among workers with disabilities, in various sectors through all appropriate social, legal, and administrative measure as mentioned in AEC 1. Number five, AMS should create an accessible environment among youth with and without disabilities. The responsible organization should advocate for universal design principles which may facilitate greater chances for the employment of youth with disabilities as mentioned in APSC 2, AEC 3, ASCC 15, and ASCC 17. Now, for the cross-development collaboration, which is number 1, AMS should ensure the participation of private companies in creating accessible technologies and public access based on APSC 2 and ASCC 5. So number 2, ASEAN and its related institution, SOMY, SOMs, SWD, and SLOM should build a regional network of inclusive enterprise and companies to promote company policy that create job opportunities with equitable salary rates for persons with disabilities, in particularly youth with disabilities, as mentioned in AEC 4 and ASCC 27. Number 3, ASEAN and its related institution, SOMY, SOM, SWD, and SLOM should fund projects related to creating employment opportunities and supporting entrepreneurship for youth with and without disabilities, as mentioned in AEC 4 and ASCC 27. Number 4, ASEAN and its related institution, SOMY, SOM, SWD, SLOM, and SOMED should establish a research center led by scholars and professionals with disabilities in close collaboration with other important stakeholders dedicated to studying the employment and job market trends for young people with disabilities, particularly in relation to technological and legal innovation, and to prepare the relevant policy draft to be adopted by ASEAN governments, as mentioned in AEC 8. Number 5, EMS should introduce an assistive technology scheme that directly benefit workers with disabilities, including contract workers and interns, to ensure access to reasonable accommodation among others through close cooperation with employers in the private sector to subsidize or sponsor the purchase of assistive technologies for their employees, as mentioned in AEC 9, AEC 10, AEC 14, AEC 15, AEC 20, ASCC 5, and ASCC 25. And number 6, ASEAN and its related institution, SOMY, should establishing an inclusive platform to connect ASEAN youth and create activities to connect youth with and without disabilities through networking platform, as mentioned in AEC 13. And now for entrepreneurship sector, which is digital platform and skill enhancement. Firstly, AMS should enhance the capability of social services and by providing vocational assessment, employability training, job and career coaching, a crowdfunding platform, and community partner, which include but not limited to CSOs or designated representative from the digital or media sector to support the community, as mentioned in APSC 4, AEC 15, ASCC 22, ASCC 35, and ASCC 36. Now I pass to Dang for continue. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to go on with the next recommendation. So the second one is ASEAN and its related institution, TLIC TELSOM, SOMY, SOMSWD, SOMED, SLOM should promote virtual entrepreneurship, mentoring program, digital learning, and security training, as mentioned in AEC 13. Number 3, ASEAN and its related institutions such as TELSOM, SOMEY, SOMSWD, SOMED, SLOM, and ASEAN member states should conduct research and provide prototype development grants for young people with disability who have ideas for invention to solve local social economic issues faced by persons with disability, including conducting mentoring programs, accessible commercialization platform, and marketing support, as mentioned in AECHN 18. The number 4, ASEAN's member states should provide training, funding, and mentoring to encourage youth with disability, with extra attention given to young women with disability and youth with disability living in rural areas to participate in digital economic activity and to start up a social enterprise or collaborative related to ICT, green technology, and the 4th industrial revolution industry, answering the business registration, financial assistance, and business loan application process are accessible and easy to understand by persons with different types of disability, as mentioned in AEC 15, ASCC 25, and 26. The number 5 is ASEAN's member states should ensure all the capacity building activity on the digitalization of traditional economic sector, such as smart farming program, are inclusive of entrepreneurs with disability, including funding support, provisions of appropriate accessible technology, and affordable supply chains ecosystem, as mentioned in AEC 4 and 30, ASCC 27. The number 6 is ASEAN and its related institutions, including TELSOM, SOMY, SOMSWD, SOMED, SLOM, and ASEAN member states to promote emerging technology such as blockchain technology, decentralized finance, and non-fungible token could empower persons with disability to participate in creator economy in relation by commission a study, create a community of practice, engage in knowledge sharing, and so forth, as mentioned in AEC 1 and 22, ASCC 25. Regarding cross-development collaboration, the number 1 is ASEAN's member states should ensure our e-commerce platform are in accordance with the West Content Accessible Guidelines 2.1, including accessible and safe online transaction system through close collaborations with private provider of e-commerce platform of people with disabled people organization, as mentioned in AEC 3 and ASCC 5. The number 2 is each ASEAN's member states should enhance the access and equity of people with disability, particularly youth, and in local creative industry through the appropriate integration and utilizations of ICT and assistive technology, including co-collaboration between relevant stakeholders such as film producer, creating art academies, and so forth, as mentioned in AEC. So We hope that recommendations can inspire the key stakeholders in ASEAN to include the needs of youth with disability and their policy-making process, and to promulgate direct engagement between youth with disability and without disability, with ASEAN's official and private companies who can better ensure equal opportunity of employment and entrepreneurship through the use of digital technology. That is the end of our speech. We sincerely appreciate for your attention today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for reading out the joint recommendations. And it was really awesome. And let's give a big virtual applause for everyone who have read out the joint recommendations just now. So as we have heard this joint recommendation being presented by the youth representatives, together we do hope that this joint recommendation can provide insights and important key points of consideration for ASEAN-related stakeholders on how to foster and ensure inclusivity of youth with disabilities related to their equal rights to employment and entrepreneurship opportunities using the digital technologies, particularly by referring to the ASEAN Enabling Master Plan 2025, maintaining the rights of persons with disabilities. So next, moving on to the next agenda item, which is the first panel discussion session with the topic of ASEAN recovery plans for youth employment and entrepreneurship using the digital technology. And this session will be moderated by my colleague, Rosalind Ratana. Rosa is an advocacy officer of the ASEAN Youth Forum. She had obtained a master's degree in international law with a focus on global human rights advocacy. She has a passion for human rights and believes that every individual possesses inalienable rights, regardless of their background. So without taking so long, let me invite Rosa to lead this first panel discussion. And over to you, Rosa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Handy, for that introduction. And thank you, everyone, for allowing me this opportunity to, be with you here today and moderate this very important and exciting discussion. So a little bit about, before I start, I would like to tell you a little bit about our organization. ASEAN Youth Forum is a regional organization focusing on the protection and promotion of the rights and freedoms of young people in Southeast Asia. We believe in human rights, justice, freedoms, peace, and democracy. So without further ado, I'm very excited to be here. And I would like to introduce our first speaker for the discussion. And they are from the ASEAN Senior Officials Meeting on Labor. And Indonesia is currently the chair of SLOM. And Mr. Muhammad Arif Hidayat is the representative of SLOM today for Indonesia. And he is the head of Cooperation Bureau in the Ministry of Manpower of Indonesia. So Mr. Muhammad Arif Hidayat, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rosa, for this opportunity, and also thank you very much for Handi Santoso for the first introduction. So let me give a time to share our presentation.
Sorry, sir, you are muted. Could you please unmute yourself?
Just a minute, there is something, the technical matters here.
And while we're waiting, I would like to encourage everyone who have a question to please note them in the box. Thank you.
Rosa, thank you very much for waiting for me.
No worries. No worries. We're happy to be here.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon from Jakarta. Thank you again for moderator, Rosa. So in the beginning of my presentation, please allow me to express my thanks to ASEAN Secretariat, ASEAN Youth Organization, Agenda, ASEAN Youth Forum, ASEAN Aid, and other related institutions for giving me opportunity for this valuable moment. So my name is Muhammad Arif Hidayat, Head Bureau of Cooperation that you already mentioned before, from the Ministry of Manpower of the Republic of Indonesia as SLOM WG Chair. On behalf of SLOM Chair Indonesia, Mr. Anwar Sanusi, please allow me to deliver the information related to ASEAN recovery plans for youth employment and entrepreneurship using digital technology. So next slide, please. SLOM is an ASEAN. Youth labor market is suffering a twin shock as a result of the coronavirus disease pandemic. A contraction in business activity has cut into employment on the demand side, while reduced access to education and training has impacted the supply side. The massive job disruption is affecting almost everyone, with 15 until 25 years old workers losing jobs at a faster rate than adults and subject to worsening conditions in the labor market. Given the current situation, the youth will likely bear greater long-term economic and social costs that will heighten intergenerational poverty and inequality. So the pandemic has impacted young workers in the region through three shock transmission channels. First, job disruption in the form of reduced working hours, reduced earnings, and job losses for paid workers and the self-employed. Second, disruption in education and training. And third, difficulties in transitioning from school to work and moving between jobs in a recession. Next. Responding for fourth industrial revolution and COVID-19 pandemic on labor and employment, ASEAN Labor Ministers' declaration and joint statements had been made in responding the changing world of work and the impact of COVID-19 pandemic as follows. The first, ASEAN Labor Ministers' statement on the future of work, embracing technology for inclusive and sustainable growth, adopted on 29 April 2019 in Singapore. And the second, joint statements of Asian Labor Ministers on response to the impact of coronavirus disease 2019 on labor and employment state on 14 May 2020 virtually. And ASEAN Declaration on Human Resources Development for Changing World of Work adopted on 26 June 2020 virtually. So that's all the responding from the Asian Labor Minister Declaration and joint statements for recovering the pandemic era and also the automatization caused by the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. As we know that the labor force and also especially for the young generation has big impact because of the pandemic COVID-19 in this era. So I think that's all our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad Arif, for that great elaboration and, letting us know what has been done from your part to tackle this, as the response to, as part of the recovery for COVID-19. So thank you so much for this. For our next speaker, I would like to welcome Mr. Somkiao Kinsada, and he is also our next speaker. So this is very fortunate to have you with us, and I will introduce you properly for this purposes. So our next panelist is from the ASEAN Senior Officials Meeting on Youth, or SOMI. And AYF personally is very grateful for the work of SOMI. Recently, SOMI has endorsed the ASEAN Work Plan on Youth 2001 to 2025, which AYF sees as a milestone to engage and empower more youth and encourage youth development. Currently, Mr. Somkiao Kinsada is the chairperson of SOMI, and he is from Lao PDR. He is also the Director General of International Relations Cooperation Department of Lao Youth Union. So, Mr. Somkiao, the floor is yours.
So, thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I have to inform you that now I am traveling back to the city. So I cannot turn on the video. Anyways, I should have some small remark for this very effective virtual meeting. Talking about the youth employment, as you know, that's we just finalized the ASEAN Work Plan on Youth 2021 to 2025, 26, yeah. But I would like to share by the national expertise that's for the Lao Youth Union where I'm working for right now. We just have official launch the national strategy development for the youth and adolescents from now to 2030. So this strategy consists of 5 domains. It's very similar to the ASEAN Work Plan on Youth, but it's what one domain is employment, youth employment and opportunity. So I think very similar to what you are talking right now. For Lao PDR, we are put this domain as the first priority right now, as the COVID-19 pandemic and another a natural disaster just really affected to the life of the youth right now, as you know. Yeah. So anyway, we put this one as the first priority, especially for the disability people, disabled people. We have we use the digital platform to reach them. And another thing, we have another IT room for the disabled people to study. So through this digital platform, we can close the gap between the disability, disadvantaged and advantaged youth in Lao PDR. So maybe we can share, as we have the Association of Youth with the Disability in Laos, and they also get involved the implementation of national youth strategy development for youth and adolescent from now to 2030. So maybe we can share another virtual meeting with ASEAN member states. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Because I'm on travel, but anyway, I do my best to attend this workshop. I think very important. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Somkiao. And no worries. It was a sweet, short but very great description of what your organization have been doing to tackle this issue. So thank you very much for your time to be here. And for our final speaker for this panel discussion, we have is from the ASEAN Senior Officials Meeting on Social Welfare and Development, Ms. Jocelyn Niwane. She is the current chair of the organization, and she is also the Assistant of Secretary for Policy and Plans Group, Department of Social Welfare and Development in the Philippines. Thank you so much for your time to be here, Ms. Jocelyn. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, to everyone, to the General Election Network for Disability Access, the ASEAN Disability Forum, the ASEAN Youth Organization, the ASEAN Youth Forum, the Australian Aid, to the ADG, SLOM, SAMSWAD, SOMI, Focal Points, colleagues, and everyone, a pleasant good afternoon. First, allow me to extend my deepest gratitude as SAMSWAD Chair to the organizers for the opportunity to share some points and insights to this public dialogue. I am both humbled and elated to be participating in this activity that aims to highlight the importance of fostering inclusivity of the youth with or without disabilities relative to equal right to employment and entrepreneurship opportunities using digital technology. In these challenging times, having a collective response is crucial if we aim to overcome the adverse effects of the pandemic. In providing remedies to various problems that beset not just the ASEAN region, but the whole world. Everybody has the power to contribute something, even the poorest, the most marginalized, and the most vulnerable individuals, families, and communities. As the adage goes, no one is too rich that he or she cannot care, and no one is too poor that he or she cannot care. With 2016 data, the total population of all ASEAN countries was recorded at 635.9 million, and the number increases every year. More than 50% of the population is under 30 years old, and this shows that most of the ASEAN population forms the youth population. During the last 2 years, the shift to the use of technology has been more pronounced, as many people in ASEAN region and perhaps around the world have resorted to the use of digital technology in order to cope with the pandemic. I am mentioning this because of the assumption that it is the youth that can be the most adaptive to the use of digital technology. But the question is, where are the youth? Most particular question is, where are the ASEAN youth with disabilities during this pandemic or time of pandemic? This pandemic has caused a lot of adverse effects and negative impacts on employment and entrepreneurship opportunities to a lot of people in the ASEAN region. But it has more serious effects for the youth with disabilities who find it more difficult to cope with the pandemic in terms of their capacity to earn during this time, as they are perceived to lack experience both in employment and entrepreneurship. If it is challenging for the youth in general, situations become more difficult for the youth with disabilities. And this is where a more inclusive response is needed if we seek to have a regional community where persons with disabilities most particularly is left behind. The recent years have witnessed efforts of the ASEAN to build a more inclusive community across all pillars and sectors. Although there have been improvements in the last few decades, the situation for persons with disabilities is still marked by unequal access and conditions. In the recent years, ASEAN has been doing its best effort to provide the promotion and protection of the rights of persons with disabilities. There have been policy milestones in ASEAN that highlighted and promote their rights and welfare and emphasize their contribution to regional developments. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or CRPD, is an international human rights instrument aimed at protecting the rights and dignity of people with disabilities. Persons with disabilities are entitled to full enjoyment of human rights and parties to the convention are required to promote, defend, and secure the complete equality under the law. With the Bali Declaration on the enhancement of the role and participation of persons with disabilities in ASEAN community, the ASEAN has aimed to be more disability inclusive in terms of developing national plans of actions, diversifying social services, developing social security schemes, access to education and work opportunities, emphasis on work opportunities. Further, the ASEAN Social Cultural Community ASCC Blueprint 2025 outlines strategic measures that seek to reduce barriers and ensure accessibility of persons with disabilities, while at the same time promoting and protecting their human rights. Further to this, the ASEAN Declaration on Strengthening Education for Out-of-School Children and Youth, or the OOSYC, states that access to education is a priority to ensure optimal benefits for all children and youth, irrespective of disability. The ASEAN Declaration on Strengthening Social Protection articulates that persons with disabilities are entitled to have equitable access to social protection and calls on ASEAN member states to support national policies, strategies, and mechanisms to strengthen the implementation of social protection programs, as well as effective targeting system to ensure that social protection services would go to those most in need. The ASEAN Declaration on Social Protection also acknowledges the individual commitments of ASEAN member states to the CRPD and states that everyone, especially those who are poor, at risk, persons with disabilities, older people, out-of-school youth, children, migrant workers, and other vulnerable groups are entitled to have equitable access to social protection that is a basic right and based on a rights-based needs, life cycle approach, and covering essential services as needed. The ASEAN Ministerial Meeting on Social Welfare and Development, or AMSWAD, with the support of SAMSWAD, was assigned as the focal point for intersectoral cooperation on social protection at regional level, while acknowledging the different national coordinating mechanisms in ASEAN member states. More recently, at the 33rd ASEAN Summit, the ASEAN Enabling Master Plan 2025, mainstreaming the rights of persons with disabilities as a way of promotion and protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms was adopted. This master plan was developed based on the guiding principle of relevance, complementarity, and interrelatedness. First is relevance. All community pillars, as well as their vision and work strategy, are affected by disability rights. The Enabling Master Plan core items confirms its importance and will pave the way for the realization of an inclusive community. Second is complementarity. The Enabling Master Plan supports ASEAN leaders and member states' current commitments and goals in developing and maintaining an inclusive environment for people with disabilities, most notably the ASEAN Community Vision 2025. Third is the interrelatedness. All human beings, or all human rights, including those of people with disabilities, are intertwined and rely on one another. Coordination across sectoral bodies, as well as engagement of people with disabilities and their organizations, will be critical to the Enabling Master Plan's holistic execution. Most relevant to the ongoing pandemic in ASEAN collective response through the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework, or the ACRF. ASEAN acknowledges that dealing with the issue will necessitate concerted activities not only within the region, but also with its partners. While overcoming the pandemic in the region's immediate priority, ASEAN must also evaluate its collective and long-term socio-economic recovery strategy. Today, more than ever, in order to cope with and recover from the pandemic, the importance of accelerating digital transformation is recognized. There have been a lot of evidences and bases that reflect how the use of digital technologies in this time of the pandemic has enabled and ushered productivity improvements in the way people act and business operate. Realizing this importance, ACRF Board Strategy number 4 focuses on accelerating inclusive digital transformation. Digital technologies present a lot of opportunities to improve economic and enhance society in the present and post-pandemic situation. This broad strategy focuses on promoting e-commerce, digital commerce, digital connectivity, use of ICT in education, and digital transformation of micro, small, and medium enterprises of MSMEs. This broad strategy somehow causes a renewed sense of urgency in accelerating digitalization, specifically for new technologies during the time of Fourth Industrial Revolution and beyond COVID-19. As identified also in the ACRF, SAMSWAD takes the lead in coordinating with the relevant sectoral bodies across all pillars to develop disability inclusive resilience plans, including risk assessments, emergency response plans, and recovery and rehabilitation plans, and allocate resources and ensure active involvement of persons with disabilities, particularly children, women, youth, and elderly or older persons. This may include accelerating digital technology to develop their expected outputs. SAMSWAD has also been identified to monitor, impact, and gather data number of programs which provide cash assistance to vulnerable group of people under broad strategy 2, that is strengthening human security. SAMSWAD is also expected to be the lead in promoting regional dialogues and joint analysis on urgent social protection responses through facilitating peer learning and dissemination of good practices with respect to short-term social protection response and medium-term social protection system building. Furthermore, SAMSWAD, along with other relevant bodies, is in charge of the promoting human capital development, including promoting digital skills and literacy and 21st century skills in basic education, TVET, and higher education through Human Resource Development Roadmap for changing world of work. Second is reskilling and upskilling for employment, including digital skills and creating job opportunities. Capacity building program of women and youth development. All the items mentioned above are relevant to youth and without disabilities. It is also important to note that at the ASEAN level, the SAMSWAD is mindful and aware of the present risk, challenges, and vulnerabilities of youth in general and youth with disabilities in particular due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The demand for social welfare to cushion the negative impacts of the current situation is highlighted. As indicated in the SAMSWAD work plan for the next 5 years, we will make the most out of opportunities to realize the commitment of leaving no one behind. Hence, SAMSWAD will move forward the preventive and development approaches and strategies to enhance the quality of life of people in the ASEAN that are inclusive, gender responsive, innovative, sustainable, and will emphasize meaningful participation of the vulnerable groups, including the youth, with and without disabilities, who will drive social transformation and become agents of change. While the role of digital transformation and the need to accelerate it has reached new heights, it is more important that this be translated to something that can contribute to social protection. With this, SAMSWAD recognizes the role of digital transformation to effect social change, create new values that connect people, provide prompt resolution to address social issues, and to provide a means for governments, civil society organizations, and other organizations to deliver humanitarian actions in time of natural and man-made disasters and crises, including the ongoing pandemic. On the set of the identified Southeast Asia Youth Recommendations that aim to foster inclusivity for youth with disabilities in ASEAN, recovery efforts in terms of equal rights to employment and entrepreneurship opportunities using digital technology. This is to express that the SAMSWAD fully welcomes and supports these recommendations, as these are regarded as catalysts that will bring about further change, enhance SAMSWAD efforts, and look closely at ways and means to ensure all initiatives are inclusive, especially for the youth with disabilities. Under the area of employment and entrepreneurship, recommendations were made along politics or policies and regulations, digital platforms and skills enhancement, raising awareness, and across development collaboration. The SAMSWAD chair regards these recommendations as vital. The SAMSWAD extends our deepest appreciation for these recommendations that can better ensure equal opportunities for employment and entrepreneurship for youth with and without disabilities through the utilization of digital technologies. We will have to revisit our existing policies to some of these and determine areas that need to be strengthened for more effective implementation or operationalization. These recommendations will allow us to craft new policies as ASEAN's response to existing and emerging challenges and concerns. Please take our assurance that all the recommendations will be taken seriously and in highest regards. May we also encourage that continuous coordination regarding these recommendations be done in order to keep track of the developments and updates along these recommendations. These recommendations may lay down pivotal strategies to bring together ASEAN member countries in a regional context to address social welfare of youth with disabilities issues through capacity building in human resources, documentation of standards and benchmarks for equality services, and partnership and intersectoral collaboration against the backdrop of the emerging challenges across ASEAN member states, which are consistent with the mandate of SAMSWAD. Further, this activity complements the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development, with its policy thrust of leaving no one behind, supporting ASEAN's vision of people-oriented, people-centered ASEAN community. It is not enough that we recognize the role of the youth with and without disabilities. What is more important, that using the social welfare developments lens, they must be able to adapt to the changing times. This is to also express that in ASEAN, there is a need to strengthen plans that will highlight the significant role of the youth by acknowledging their potentials and build up their capacities in order for them to adapt to the ongoing pandemic. Providing them opportunities at the national and regional levels will capacitate them to be more productive, not only for themselves and their families. Being true to our commitment to value is a way of acknowledging the fact that the future of ASEAN belongs to them. Lastly, SAMSWAD would like to encourage other relevant ASEAN sectoral bodies to continue to have dialogues and fora on the role of the youth with and without disabilities and discuss and provide resolutions to issues that they encounter during these challenging times. Concerted and intensive efforts must be exercised to somehow narrow the gap in terms of accessibility to and utilization of digital technologies so that the youth of ASEAN have an equal chance in life. The use of digital technologies safeguards their income security and sources of livelihood through social protection that will ensure an adequate standard of living. Let us also ensure that the initiatives and action plans agreed upon in the region are cascaded and considered in the national development plans and initiatives to warrant continuity and accountability. To end, allow me to quote a poem that says, "We may be the same storm, but not in the same boat. Just like boats braving the storm, our situations are different. Our struggles and ways of coping are different. Some ships are sturdy, while some are flimsy. For some, the ongoing pandemic is a time of peace and self-reflection, while for some, it is a quest for survival, life, relationships, bills, responsibilities. But in all of what is happening around us, let us continue to look and see beyond our needs. Yes, we may not be in the same boat, but for those of us who are in more sturdy boats, but what we can do at the least is to offer a space in our boat or throw a raft for others to survive." Again, thank you for the opportunity to share, and pleasant good afternoon to all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jocelyn, for that comprehensive explanation on the Enabling Master Plan as well as ASEAN Recovery Framework for COVID-19. And we will also extend our appreciation for your endorsement of our recommendations earlier. I'm sure the youth are very excited to hear your support and recommendations of what they have been, cooking up until this moment. So thank you very much, Ms. Jocelyn.
Thank you.
And if you don't mind, we do have a couple of questions from the participants. So I guess if you don't mind, we have about 7 to 6 minutes to answer this question. So I will just read out one now from PIA. They're talking about how approximately 2.3% of Myanmar population have some form of disability. And, due to the current political situation, they're not able to access, technical equipment for their studies. And, how would we be able to make the disabilities, people with disabilities in Myanmar to get the chance to use the digital technology for their careers and for the disabilities in the ASEAN region as well? Would it be possible for them to be provided with aids and, to help them, get employment and also during their studies?
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, I think that question really goes to the heart. I mean, really, we understand the situation, and for our country here in the Philippines, we have our organization for persons with disabilities, and the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities have some funds to try to come up and provide this digital equipment to them. I believe it is it's the right of these kids or this youth to really have this kind of gadgets to be able to be at par with their other youth of the ASEAN countries, of course, but probably if they could ask the government to help lobby for the provision of this equipment or that they would need, then I believe the national government will be able to look for ways to help them. For other funding, they could also request other development agencies to help them. But what is important is that they will be able to articulate it in a project proposal and maybe submit it to ASEAN. And who knows, maybe the other countries of the ASEAN would be of help, or other countries outside ASEAN will be able to help. Like now, I think the Australian government is helping. So this means we could explore to be able to help provide the necessary equipment or digital equipment that our youth would need. So that is, I cannot promise anything, but these are the ways that we could explore to try and come up with this necessary gadgets for our youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jocelyn, for that, provision of ways that, it can happen, even though it is quite, I'm sure it's, very struggling right now, the people in Myanmar with the current political situation.
Agreed.
But thank you for those suggestions, nevertheless. And if there's any other views from the panel member, if not, I can just say about the second question. Okay. So the second question we have from Ms. Kin, and she asked, how can we speak about inclusivity in a broader sense, that the intersectionality of marginalized communities does not stop at normative gender identities, sexual orientations, sex characteristics, citizenships, educational attainments, and none at all. That all of these can be identities of some people with or without disabilities. So how can we be more inclusive to, these different backgrounds and identities, so to speak?
Yeah, I guess that's really something that we have to work on. Even at this time, we all are aware that there are biases and still gender inequalities that are happening. We have to teach our youth to be more tolerant, to be able to respect the choices of people. And that's very important, that culture of tolerance and culture of being able to understand the values of other and culture, of course, so that we will be able to respect one another. And that in the education and engagement of all the people, especially in ASEAN, to know each culture so that we could be able to respect one another and see that there is no one that is better, no culture is better, but all cultures and all peoples, regardless of sexual orientation or gender, would be able to respect each other and listen to one another. I think that's the most important thing there, is to learn to listen, learn to respect the choices of others and the culture that they are already being open-minded, and of course to be able to look at people as human beings. That's the most important thing, I guess, so that we could be able to relate as humans, not because of our orientation or because of our color or because of our beliefs or because of the way we were brought up. But if we look at people as people, then the respect of value, the values of respect will immediately or naturally emerge.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jocelyn. And yes, those are really the main, efforts that we can, as a community do for each other to promote that inclusivity, space and, and to practice tolerance, acceptance for, people with different backgrounds. So thank you so much for that, Ms. Jocelyn. And is there any other views from the other panel members, Mr. Muhammad or Mr. Somkiao, maybe? as a final remark?
I think I could share maybe there's some can we share Adit some SLOM activities that we have done?
No.
So maybe I could set for a while. So the SLUM activities next. Yeah, the SLUM activities had been implemented to support skill development and skill recognition in ASEAN. As we know, we have to provide the teaching of digital entrepreneurship and skill and attitudes. So including this for the young employment. So the first is the study on enhancing the competitiveness of ASEAN human resources through responsive technical and vocational education training curriculum. And also the second, the ASEAN guiding principles for quality assurance and recognition of competency certification systems. And the third, ASEAN technical and vocational education training council development. And the last is comparative study on laws and policies in the management of migrant workers in ASEAN, particularly in occupation under the 8th mutual recognition arrangement. So that's why this is also included also the young employment. So I think another issue that we have to making the effectiveness teaching of digital entrepreneurship skills and also the attitudes, and also effective nurturing and operation of digital ecosystem, and also the effective integration of digital entrepreneurs in industrial supply chains. Maybe Rosa, that's all of our information to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad, for that list of activities, and I'm sure they are, it's encouraging to see that the organization has done, activities to tackle this specific issue. So thank you very much for that, and thank you all for the panelist members who have, graced us with your presence today at this discussion. We really do appreciate it, and all of your explanations have been, very enriching for our knowledge, on what has been done by your respective organizations on this issue. So thank you all very much. And I guess that concludes our first panel discussion of today. And thank you once again to our panelists members. Handi, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Rosa. And it is a really great session. And I believe that you guys are, really interested on the ongoing discussion that we just had earlier. And I believe that all of you also are gaining new knowledge from the previous session. I also would like to extend the highest appreciation for the endorsement of our youth recommendation. Also, thank you very much for your kind and active participations from our fellow participants during the panel discussions session. So let's move on to the next agenda item for more enriching discussions. And the next session is the second panel discussions that will discuss the topic of financial inclusion for youth with disabilities. This session will be moderated by my colleague, Agatha Natania. Agatha is the Executive Director of the ASEAN Youth Organization. She has a background in international relations studies and was selected as an awardee of Erasmus Plus exchange program to TU Dortmund, Germany. She has been actively involved in volunteering activities and youth development initiatives since 2011, particularly related to the intercultural and interfaith projects, youth empowerment, and peace-building initiatives. Agatha is also appointed as a member of the International Youth Advisory Body established by the Dicastery for Laity, Family, and Life in Vatican. So to make the time more effective, let me continue by inviting Agatha to lead the second panel discussion. The screen is yours, Agatha. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Handi, for the kind introduction. A very good afternoon and welcome again to all distinguished speakers, to excellencies, also for our speakers. And participants, as Handy already explained earlier, my name is Agatha, and it's such an honor for me to become the moderator for this session. In this panel discussion, we will discuss about the financial inclusion for youth with disabilities. And we're very pleased to inform you that in the speakers for this particular panel discussion, we have the first one, Miss Maria Perdomo, Regional Coordinator and Regional Digital Hub Manager for Asia, United Nations Capital Development Fund, or UNCDF. And we also have Mr. Ramya Prajna, Co-CEO Impact Agency for Brand and Social, PT Think Smart Ide Brajendra, or ThinkWeb. Hello, Miss Maria and Mr. Ramya. Thank you very much for coming.
Hi. Thank you very much, Agatha, for the invitation. And thank you very much, colleagues all that are online. I'm very, very excited to be part of this panel today. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Maria. Hello, Mr. Ramya. Very
Hi.
good. Okay, thank you very much for our two speakers. So we will listen to a short presentation from each speaker. First, we will hear a short presentation or speech by Ms. Maria Perdomo about enhancing inclusive digital economy for all youth in Southeast Asia, future trends and strategies. Ms. Maria, the screen is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope you can all see my screen. So, yes. Is that okay?
Yes, it's very good.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so let me start. So I'm going to talk today about our work and with youth in particular, youth financial inclusion, taking into consideration the more and more digitalized financial inclusion systems all over the world, in particular in Asia. And I will also be sharing some of our examples on this topic in other countries around the world. So before I start, let me give you a brief introduction of what UNCDF is for those of you who do not know, as we are a UN agency with a unique mandate that is like a hybrid between a development agency and a development finance institution. So we basically, our mantra is to unlock public and private capital for the achievement of the SDGs. And we do that through providing technical assistance to both governments and private sector partners, and deploying different capital instruments, financial instruments like loans, grants, guarantee, etc. For the public finance part, we usually work with local governments to increase their access to other sources of finance so that they can really bring that money that is probably not getting into at the local level and bring it and invest it in local projects that are really impactful for the economies and the communities where they are. And from the private sector, we usually work with in the financial sector to unlock private finance for entrepreneurs, for women, for youth, and those most left behind. Because of the evolution, if you want, of the financial markets in all the countries where we work, which is most of them, which are the least developed countries, we have a specific focus of investment in least developed countries. Because of the evolution of the financial markets, thanks to technology and digital, more and more we focus our attention not only on financial inclusion, but more broadly on mobilizing private finance using digital technologies and the transformation of the country that we work into digital economies. So with that, let me give you some overview or a framework of our interventions on how we approach this issue of youth financial inclusion and youth and digital inclusion overall. So here we work in 4 different work streams. So the first one is at the policy level, where we hope to work with regional, or to enhance regional dialogue and action, where regional bodies can play a specific role in bringing youth and those most left behind, youth with disabilities, for example, as well, of course, to the table, harmonizing and standardizing policies and regulation that work best for youth. Here are key topics of intervention. I will go deeper into those topics later on. Are trying to work with these regional bodies to harmonize indicators. For example, that's something that we are currently doing with ASEAN within the framework of their work with their financial inclusion working group, for example. We also work with the governments at the country level to help them and support them in measuring the evolution of the digital economy. We put a focus on client protection also, which is also key for young people to really access financial services and get the maximum out of those financial services. So making sure that we don't harm when we only intend to do good. The second work stream is on open digital payments ecosystems. So here is where we basically want to set or put the rails for digital finance and digital finance solutions to really be able to use by many in the country, in particular young people. So while these interventions may benefit the entire population, because of the demographics of our countries and where we work, we know that we'll definitely have a huge impact on youth. And here what we mean is making sure, for example, that someone like you and me or anybody in the last mile is able to make digital payments and access digital financial services from any provider and make a digital payment to another provider without any kind of intervention. That is key for financial inclusion, given the fact that we might enter the financial system through digital payments, but thanks to that digital payment, then we will be able to access other types of finance. Then inclusive innovation. Here, everything or our work is around making sure that financial service providers, fintechs, and other private sector partners, platforms that have been e-commerce platforms, etc., that I've been hearing a lot about during this forum, they really are designed in a way that youth is at the center of those innovations, where youth really play a role and we take into consideration what are their needs in terms of transitioning from one stage to another, from school to work, for example, and also what is the role that young people play in the economies where they are. Last but not least, even if we were to do wonderful things in every one of these work streams, design wonderful policies, work with everybody and making sure that there is a really shared infrastructure, digital infrastructure in the countries where we work, etc. If young people do not know how to access those innovations and do not know how to use them, our work will be completely useless. So this is at the center of our interventions, making sure that young people actually have the digital and financial capabilities to access and take the most advantage of the services that they use. Now, let me dip a little bit into some of these topics that I just mentioned. For the policy level, we have, I was telling you that we have developed at UNCDF a scorecard. The Inclusive Digital Economy Scorecard that aims to provide a roadmap or to support governments in to measure the evolution over time of the digital economy. Of course, financial inclusion is at the center. We have 4 sections of IDIS that mirror the 4 work streams that I just identified: policy, infrastructure, innovation, and skills. But in addition to that, which is something that is unique about IDIS, is that really IDIS is meant to measure the inclusivity of that digital economy. And we measure it based on different segments of the population. So we can know exactly what's the digital divide for women, So the gender digital divide, what's the the youth digital divide, migrant digital divide, etc. So it's very, very tailored. And we use IDES not only as a way to measure the evolution, but also as a way to inform what kinds of policies are needed to be changed in the countries where we work, or also to support private sector partners with their innovations and to design better products. Now, let's go to infrastructure. Here, we have been supporting in Myanmar. I've heard a lot of things about Myanmar during this conference. We're supporting in Myanmar the development of an interoperable platform that basically will allow clients from an MFI, from a microfinance institutions, to make payments to other clients of a different MFI of a different bank. In some countries of ASEAN, this is normal and this is happening. In some others, it's not happening. And it's a big barrier to financial inclusion. And the importance of this is that these types of interoperable platforms can really help us to decrease the transaction cost for people to use financial services, which is one of the major barriers, if you want, when it comes to the inclusion of those most left behind, in particular, women and youth. Let's go to other, in the interest of time, innovations. Here, I was telling you, well, we have different ways of support young people in the infrastructure work stream. Here, it is important that we support them to really accelerate the asset accumulation process. So how can we make sure that young people can accumulate faster savings, for example? How is that savings or collection of savings, how can it be more affordable for young people? How can it be more convenient for young people? Also, we are experimenting a lot with crowdfunding platforms, with match savings accounts, for example, that really give young people that leapfrog to either start a business or to go and continue their education, for example, or in general to achieve their savings goals. Then another one is to increase access to capital. So how is it that we're really gonna make sure that that young person living in the last mile in a remote area in Thailand, for example, is really going to be able to access capital for his or her enterprise? So here, for example, we are supporting a lot of projects in alternative collateral learning, for example, leveraging alternative data to create credit scorings, for example. That's something that is very important for youth, as they usually have lack collateral, for example. And so digital and big data is really, really is key to help us do that. Then improving access to networks and markets. We know that young people usually need, in order to start up their business, etc., access to new networks and markets. And so leveraging digital technology to do that, usually we do it by merging, for example, at one super platform, one that provides crowdfunding access and also but connects young people to other networks, etc. And finally, maybe, some of these solutions that I just gave you maybe are very good for young entrepreneurs, right? But not every single young person would like to start up their own businesses. So that we also need to make sure that we are supporting SMEs with access to finance and those in particular with great potential to create jobs for youth. Here, of course, digital or SMEs that are innovating in digital solutions are key. Also, those SMEs that are, for example, using digital to increase efficiencies and increase their ability to employ young people, for example, super platforms is also key. And the way we do it also is by injecting some capital through our different financial instruments like loans and guarantees. Last but not least is the part of skills. I've also heard some things about skills and the importance of building financial capabilities and digital capabilities for youth. So for example, in Cambodia, we're partnering with SMEs using bookkeeping applications to build the skills of young entrepreneurs. Most of them are women. In Bangladesh, we're partnering with Visa to deliver financial and digital trainings to 200,000 entrepreneurs. And in general, we also support governments to integrate financial literacy and sometimes also digital literacy into their curriculum. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention. And I would like to pass the floor to my colleagues, moderator. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Maria, for the very comprehensive presentation. And thank you for explaining to us the very important points on ensuring the inclusivity for youth and also youth with and without disabilities in terms of financial inclusion. So we will now proceed with our second speaker, Mr. Ramya Prajna. He will be sharing about advancing the inclusive employment of youth with disabilities using the digital technology in Indonesia, challenges and opportunities. Before I give the floor to Mr. Ramya, I would like to encourage all participants, if you have questions to our really outstanding speakers, please feel free to drop your questions, stating your name, where do you come from, and also to whom do you want to direct your question to, and your short question. Thank you. So without further ado, let me give the screen and the time to our speaker, Mr. Ramya.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm not preparing my slide of presentation because of short of notice that I just got a couple of days ago. But just to give the context, and perhaps we can have more a time for discussion. I will share my experience, my company having people with disabilities as our employees. So my company is a digital marketing agency or digital advertising agency. We, aside of our commercial business, we also have a couple of initiative projects. We start the company at about like 15 years ago. And then along the years, we have a couple of activities that include people with disabilities in the activities. One of the activities is help to retype a book that the soft file will be converted into the Braille book, because it's hard to get the soft copy of files. So we do the retyping the book, and then some organization will convert into the Braille book. And then what we do is, and then we also have these activities that having like, we call it a bioscope basic, a whispering cinema. So it's actually watching a movie, going to the cinema, watching a movie together, people with visual impairment, and that accompany with a volunteer to whisper the scene, what happens on the screen, on the scene, describing what they see what they saw in the movie. And so the people with the disability, the blind people, have more complete understanding about the movies. And then after years of the collaboration and works with the friends with visual impairment, we try to open employment for the friends with visual impairment. So at about 5 to 6 years ago, we start to have one employee with visual impairment, and then the year after we have another one. So right now we have 2 friends that working for us with people with 2 employees that have a visual impairment working for us. As advertising agencies, right now, as a digital marketing agency, right now we're supporting our client to produce a campaign for in a social media. So a couple of our work is actually supporting for a brand having their marketing campaign, producing the Instagram post or Facebook post, and then push it to social media. The employees with the visual impairment work as the copywriter, and then after a couple of years, they are start working for the editor in chief. So and still going on till right now. We also have this kind of policy that we encourage our employees to work within other divisions, so they can they can learn about the other expertise. For instance, that we have other division about the data analytics or the digital advertisement. Our employees that visual impairments also work within this activities that they also exploring other capabilities so they can move forward and exploring other opportunity for their professional works. So I think that's the experience that I have that I can share with the participants. As the digital company or technology company, we have this spirit that we believe, or I believe, that technology will elevate humanity. So that's why we always have this encouragement to work and to support all the people to have this inclusivity, because with that inclusivity, we can have more understanding and we can build more in terms of technology. For the last words, I want to say that inclusivity needs two parts. So it's hard to be an inclusive company for us. It's hard to be an inclusive company if friends with disabilities not appear in the surface. So we have to know, because most of them is below the radar. So we have to know all the friends that with the disabilities, and then what their capabilities, what they can do, and everything else. And then so we can work together and we can bring the inclusivity more to others. So I think that's for me for short. Perhaps we can continue with the discussion session. Thank you. Back to you, Agatha.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramya, for sharing your personal or first-hand experiences in your own company. And thank you for sharing as well the experience of creating the digital book and also the Whispering Cinema. I think it was very famous for our colleagues in Jakarta. I think Mr. Rastra also mentioned in the chat box he participated in that Whispering Cinema. So congrats for that. So we are now in the question and answer session. We have a few questions already for Ms. Maria and also Mr. Ramya. For the others who wish to give comments or also wants to share your personal experience, also feel free to use the chat box. So the first question, let me ask to Ms. Maria. And later, if Mr. Ramya, do you have any comments, please feel free to jump in. Ms. Maria, there is a question from our colleague from Indonesia. How to ensure all the 4 pillars of inclusive digital transformation can be accessible and reach out to youth with disabilities to give them better and equal access to entering and benefiting from the digital economy?
Thank you very much. Well, the first thing is to make sure that there's really a dialogue between the young people and the government, those that are setting up the policies, right? To make sure that those are inclusive of youth and in particular young people with disability. I think that's at the key. Or that should be at the center of anybody's ambitions, of any country's ambitions. The second thing is to make sure that any diagnostic that is informing those policy changes, right, is inclusive of young people with disabilities. To make sure that when we are doing or supporting governments and private sector to better understand what's the state of the digital economy, what's the state of the financial inclusion, etc. Those two segments, if I might say, that are the center also of those diagnostics. And last but not least, I would say, well, not last, I would add another thing. Another point would be in the innovation part. I talked about the centricity or the need to be to develop or to use human development centric approaches to the design of products. Sometimes people just design, or companies, they design products without really taking into consideration the needs of those who are going to use those products. And that this is in particular important to make sure that those products and services are indeed inclusive of young people with disability. And last but not least, I would say that this is across the board, and the skills part, to make sure that people and young people with disabilities are at the center of any private sector approach and any government Ministry of Education to really build the digital and financial capabilities of our young people and youth with disabilities.
Thank you, Ms. Maria. Before I give the floor to Mr. Ramya, feel free later to give further comments on that. But maybe you can also share with us what is the ideal collaboration, or what is like a great steps for the youth with and without disabilities to collaborate together in ensuring this financial inclusion.
Well, I stand ready to support young people with disability. I think that the work that you do convening young people and people with young people with disability is key. The work that civil society does, the work that ASEAN does, the work that all the development partners do is key. NGOs, I think we all have to come together for a call of action and make sure you are really taken into consideration when it comes to the design of new policies, when it comes to that you have a seat at the table. I think that's important. When it comes to the development of new products and services, making sure you are counted, right, in numbers, in the indicators that help the government measure the evolution of inclusion, of financial inclusion in the country, of digital transformation of the country. I think that's key.
Thank you, Ms. Maria. Any thoughts, Mr. Ramya, for these two questions?
Yeah, Ms. Maria explained it very well. The word that I always use is dialogue. It's really important. And dialogue need at least two sides. Two part. Well, it's not a dialogue within yourself. It's a different dialogue, I believe. But we need the dialogue to make this more, to be inclusive, to have the collaboration and everything else. I also mentioned about the how to be the inclusiveness is happen is because there are some part that taking their role within the job, the activities, or the work itself. Let me give the example. There's a big application, application that a unicorn startups in Indonesia, and also competing with other unicorn startup. The one application, the one startup, have the application is more inclusive. It's accessible for the people with visual impairment, and the other is not. Why? It's just because one of the initial developers is people with disabilities, people with a visual impairment. So it makes a huge difference because all the developers are aware that are people that different from them. So that's why they have, because this awareness, and then they made this application is more inclusive with others. Because if it's not, like Ms. Maria mentioned before, that you need to make sure that you are counted. That's really important, because if it's not, you're being forgotten, and it will drag you down and then you'll become vanish at all. So I encourage all the young disabilities that to appear on the surface, include yourself in any activities, in any startups, because right now we have many tech startup, right? Startup is actually a very small company because they just started. A small company have more flexibility than the big company. So that's the opportunity for all of us to make this work together, because, well, if it's more flexible, it's more open to make it as an inclusive company. Thank you, Agatha.
Mr. Ramya, there's like very supportive and also positive encouragement of message, both from Mr. Ramya and also from Ms. Maria. And it's very true that in order to achieve or to ensure that financial inclusion happens to the youth, both with and without disabilities, there's a need not only collaboration, but also having this continuous dialogue, and also to come up to the surveys. That's a very strong message. I think there are a lot of like youth, sometimes they feel shy, or they don't really wanna, come to the surface because they feel about, being bullied, or like a lot of concerns. So that's very important message, and thank you for the words of encouragement. Unfortunately, due to the time limitation, we have to end this second panel discussion. But I think we can agree that this kind of webinar, this kind of dialogue is very necessary, and I hope later on in the future we can have more collaborations and more dialogue and discussions in this topic. So thank you so much once again, Ms. Maria Perdomo and Mr. Ramya Prachna, for your contributions, for your presentations and sharing of knowledge. I would like to give the floor back to Handi.
Thank you very much, Agatha. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Agatha. This is a really interesting and fruitful discussion that we just had on the second panel discussion. And I would like to also thank Ms. Maria and also Mr. Ramya for your knowledge and also thoughts shared with our participants today. That was really enriching for all of us, I believe, and also personally for me. Thank you once again, Agatha, for leading this session. So seems like our event today is almost approaching to the end of it. So for the next session, we will hear the summary and key takeaways from our public dialogue today. And for this particular agenda, I'd like to invite my colleague, Michael from the ASEAN Youth Organization, to lead us with the explanation of the summary and key takeaways of today's event. Michael, the screen is yours, and over to you.
Hi, thank you, Handi, and I would like to say thank you to the speakers, because they are so amazing on explaining about the ASEAN recovery plans for youth employment and entrepreneurship using digital technology, and also financial inclusion for youth with disabilities. And without further ado, I would like to explain the key takeaways that I already noted along the way, and I hope I didn't miss anything. So this is from the first session, the first panel discussion. There are some few key challenges and also few key takeaways from the first panel discussion. I'm going to read first the key challenges. The first one is reduced access to education and job opportunities because of the COVID-19 pandemic, massive job disruption because of transitioning into digital technologies, worsening condition in job market because of the pandemic, again reduced working hours and earnings because of the pandemic, difficulties in transitioning from school to work, or from offline school or offline work to online school to online work. And then there are higher demands for social welfare services with little supply. And also Myanmar civilians cannot access the technologies and even the education because of the current situation with the COVID pandemic and also the coup in Myanmar. And there are some key takeaways from the first panel discussion. The first one is embracing technology and innovation to achieve inclusive and sustainable growth. And then IT room for people with disabilities to run from somewhat. And then somewhat to build inclusive environments for everyone, for people with disabilities and also people without disabilities. Enhancing the accessibility to digital technology, as the digital technology enhances the development and helps e-commerce, ICT, and digitalization to tackle the current challenges. Intersectoral government bodies to provide platforms for the youths with disabilities and also without the disabilities, reskilling and upskilling programs for everyone, especially for the youths with disabilities, capacity program on women and youth development, and somewhat has endorsed and support recommendations in the statement. And also the last one is somewhat has along the way come up with policy policies to support what the recommendations to support the recommendations from the previous focus group, previous recommendations from other institutions. That is from the first panel discussion. And then I will move on to the second one, financial inclusion for youth with disabilities. So the first one is key takeaways from UN CDF, enabling policy and regulations. And then the second one is open digital payments. And then the third one is inclusive innovations. And the fourth one is empowered customers. We need to build infrastructure through blended finance and also interoperable platform. And then we will make innovations with youth-centric approaches through accelerate saving accumulations in extension like crowdfunding and digital savings, increasing access to capital, improving access to networks for youths with disabilities and also without the disabilities. And the last one is bringing finance to SMEs with potential to create jobs for youth. And this is the key takeaway from Mr. Ramya Prachna. He has a digital marketing agency and a couple of initiative projects starting from 15 years ago. He has already created some comforting normal books to braille books. Some initiatives also like Whispering Cinema for people with visual impairments and trying to open employment for people with visual impairment, and already accepted 2 people with visual impairment. And the last one is that it is very important to surface, to bring out, to be brave with what we have, with or without disabilities, and ask for our rights. People with disabilities also has rights, and therefore we have to be aware of that. So that is the key takeaways from this public dialogue. I hope I didn't miss anything. And thank you so much, everyone, for the attention.
All right.
Back to you, Hani.
Thank you so much, Michael, for wrapping up all the points of discussions of our event today. It was really important for reminding all the participants of what we have discussed on today's event. And I believe that we're approaching to the very last agenda that we have today. So time flies really fast, I can say. But before I close the session, I would like to invite Mr. Lim Wai Kiak, the chair of ASEAN Disability Forum, to give a closing remark. So, Mr. Pitilim, you may have the screen for closing, and over to you.
Thank you very much for this very excellent session. And I think the recommendations that are put forth by our youth representatives from various ASEAN countries have really bring to great contrast the important issues that would affect their lives as they want to go about being included in the employment situation using digital digitization and infocom technology during this very trying time of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as the world looks towards making COVID-19 an endemic issue where we have to learn to live with it, I think digitization is one of the key ingredients in which many platforms and many ways in which we can go about thinking, using this platform and using this new technology of how we can interact with the world around us and to conduct our business, to conduct our daily lives. And I hope that the recommendations that have been shared by our various youth representatives would be very strongly accepted and implemented by the various ASEAN sectoral bodies and stakeholders. I think we have brought in examples of how this can be implemented, and I think I sense that we have received tremendous support for the various recommendations that we have arrived and making these recommendations viable and sustainable in the days ahead. So thank you very much for joining us, for taking time off your very busy schedule to be with us the last 2 hours or so. And I hope that as we move forward to remember two very important slogans of the disability community within us, and that is leave no one behind, and nothing about us without us. Thank you once again, and we appreciate your support and your continued collaboration with us. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Pitilim, for the closing remark. And thank you so much, everyone, fellow youth participants, for your kind and active participation and for your high enthusiasm in following our public dialogue today. So I'm really happy to lead this event with you all. And I also would like to extend my highest appreciation to the honorable speakers and panel speakers as well, organizing committees of this public dialogue, sign language interpreter from PLJ Indonesia, Mr. Upi Abdurrahman, our typist for closed caption, as well as the CM management for your kind support to make this public dialogue a successful event. Lastly, I hope that you find this public dialogue useful and beneficial for you, and see you on another event with us. Have a nice day, stay safe and healthy, and goodbye. Thank you everyone for your time.
Do you know in ASEAN, over 17 million people struggle with accessing public facilities every single day. People with issues of sight, mobility, hearing, and intellect still face many barriers in their everyday lives. For persons with disabilities, society still has little solutions for them. Well, that's about to change. The ASEAN Enabling Master Plan 2025 is committed to mainstream the rights of persons with disabilities, ensuring that each individual enjoy their equal rights like the rest of us. With accessible facilities and increased communications, persons with disabilities have more ways to travel out of their homes to discover and connect with their communities. With better systems and new technology, persons with disabilities are empowered to pursue an education, which gives them better prospects in the workforce. And with a stable income, they can take over the steering wheel and have the freedom to make the decisions that matter. So let's change our attitudes and work hand in hand as a people with one vision, one identity, one community to build a better ASEAN. Are you ready to make this change?
Hi.
Thank you so much, everyone. You may leave the Zoom meeting room and see you in another future events. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Recording stopped.